welcome back to the Bro Force Squad. This is a special episode, one of our quick lifts, where we are going to do another review for some very popular media out there, which you may have heard of. Today we are doing Westworld Episode 2, entitled Chestnut. To get the giggle out of the way. I am your host, Jeff Hornacek. Today with me is my partner in crime, Alex English. Alex, greetings and salutations, to be very proper.
Jeff, what an intro. I didn't even know I've done all those things in my life. A lot of achievements that you mentioned there.
I think you may have come in the middle of a different conversation.
Oh, did I? Oh, well, I'm sure you can edit all that stuff in afterwards.
We'll edit in some accomplishments and I'll tout you when we do that.
Pleasure to be on. Really excited to talk about the second episode of this just baller show that HBO has put together. And, you know, a lot of the times it's really hard to follow up a fantastic pilot like that. But, I mean, I'm just gonna say it right off the bat. I thought they did a pretty good job with the second one. What did you think?
They absolutely did. This show, as the kids would say, it's hot fire. It's lit. It's turnt. Everything about it is catching a blaze. This is the new, as kind of we spoke last time, sort of, it's kind of being groomed as the Game of Thrones replacement in a year or so, or 2 years, whenever that ends. And yeah, the pilot episode wowed us. It gave us everything we needed. It teased us. It tickled our balls. The second episode came in and somehow topped it, I think. And just for those of you out there listening to this, if you're a sick, disgusting person and you haven't seen the episode but want it spoiled for you, that's what we're going to do. This is a spoiler-heavy episode. And if you have seen it, of course, heavy flow,
it's
spoilers.
It's a quick lift, but we're going to max out.
Yeah, so for me, that's about a 10 on each side of the bar. And don't be afraid to help get it off my chest. Jesus, let me drown. So the way we do this, obviously, if you're listening to this, you saw the episode. So we're not going to sit here and spoon feed you every second of the plot, especially because something like this would actually take probably a lot longer than most show reviews. But first off, between episode 1 and 2, what was kind of the first thing that you noticed when watching this? Because it sort of starts, as I was hoping it would. They got sort of all the exposition and the world-setting stuff out of the way in the pilot episode, which is what hooks you because it's a very unique concept. And then this one, you just fucking jump right into it with essentially two bros. It was like I thought at first it was like a bachelor party, but the one dude has like no other friends that can go. But they're just two bros entering Westworld, and one of them is a veteran of it, and the other one is kind of... I guess, as you said pre-show, the point of view narrator for us. We're kind of going into this the same time with him.
Right, so you're referring to the characters that are introduced right at the beginning, Logan and William. Logan being played by this guy, Ben Barnes, who his IMDb picture looks like John Mayer. I've never heard of him before. I mean, I thought he did fine. And then his friend is an actor by the name of Jimmy Simpson, who you've probably seen in a bunch of stuff.
Or is also probably a kid in your neighborhood, because that's what it sounds like, an 8-year-old
kid.
Right,
except his name is spelled Jimmy with 2 M's and 2 I's.
Two I's?
Yes, 2 I's.
Wow.
So actually that's his agent going like, this is how I'm going to separate you from that neighborhood kid that everybody's going to relate
That's
to.
That's allergic to everything.
But, so, you may know him from a little Netflix show called House of Cards. He had a pretty big role there in several seasons. But like me and Jeff talked about, you know, he's a very good, like, character actor. Has, like, this interesting face.
Yeah.
You just, like, never really know if he's, like, plotting some fucked up shit or if he's, like, just being naive. And I think definitely in this show, his introduction is, like you said, he's kind of like the newbie to the world. And he's being kind of naive. And they did a really good job in the beginning of just... Because in the first episode, like you said, it's the exposition. They introduce you to the idea. But you're like, how do these people get here?
Yeah.
Like, how do they get their clothes? How do they know what to do?
I love how the first 2 seconds you're at Westworld, basically like after you sign in, they're like, do you want to have sex with this robot?
Well... Pretty much, though. Although, is she a robot? Yeah, she's definitely a robot.
Well, I loved her line when he said, "Are you real?" And she goes, "If you can't tell, it doesn't matter." And I was like, well, "Okay."
Right. And all the robots, like, they for some reason all have like British accents.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just more attractive to the guests, they probably did like a crazy survey and figured out that they're really into hot British accents.
British tested better than anything else.
Yes, for sure.
Than Cajun.
But I thought it was really cool because they just it's almost like when you start a video game for the first time and you have those like intro levels,
like learn the controls.
Here's the controls. Yeah.
The other thing
I think that's definitely on purpose. Like they're setting it up that way, and if you're a person that plays video games, you kind of figure that out right away. If you're not, it may kind of go over your head.
So the thing that I was kind of wondering, and it's nice that we can just dive right into this because if you're listening to this, obviously you saw the show. So the character of William, as you said, Jimmy Simpson, the way he plays this role and almost like every other role, he sort of has this, like, it's kind of a naive disposition, but it's also one that you don't take at face value. You don't really trust him to be the character that he's pretending to be a lot of times. Did you get the feeling? I get the feeling there's something really dark about him that we don't know yet that we're going to find out. His friend, when they were getting changed going into Westworld, made some, or actually maybe it was on the train. He made some allusion to, and maybe you can kind of fill in the blanks here, like something traumatic had happened to him. That's why they went, or he was like trying to get over something. Do you kind of remember that line they had on the train when they were like drinking the scotch?
Yeah, well, one thing that was interesting, going back, I'm gonna work my way back to that. But when he's talking to the hot robot that's being like, have sex with me, or you can just change.
Right.
She mentioned something like about his friend, and he's like, "Oh, we're just coworkers."
Yeah,
so,
we're
like,
not friends.
I don't even think that guy. I mean, they know each other.
She should have said, "But are you Facebook friends?"
Right, definitely. And so then, they get on the train, and they're just, the one guy's like, "Oh man, you're gonna basically just be doing acid for the whole time we're here."
Right.
And he's just kind of like trying to figure out what it all is, and I could be, maybe he's just trying to show the guy a good time. Maybe he just got out of a really tough relationship, and he just needs to go have sex with some robots.
Yeah,
but
their dynamic
later. He's not really into that.
Yeah, the two friends dynamic I still really can't figure out. It seems like William like fucking hates this dude, but we all have that friend that like somehow just keeps ending up at like all your hangouts and get-togethers.
But usually you also have like 3 other guys there, so you don't have to talk to him the whole time.
Right. So his reason for being in Westworld, there's something going on, and we can talk about in just a little bit some of the broader theories we already have for the show, which is fun to do now because we really know, like, in the grand scheme of things, like in 10 weeks when we've seen all of this, we're going to realize how little we know right now. But
we still don't know how they get there. Like, they get on a train, but, like, he took the train from, like, a room. We're like, what just happened? Like, that scene, it felt like I was watching Willy Wonka. Like, he's just, like, in this room that's clearly not moving, and he's just putting on some clothes, and then he steps through this door, and all of a sudden he's on a moving train. And it's like, wait, so was the train moving the whole time? Was he, like, is the room attached to the, like, it still doesn't make sense how they get there to me, which I like.
Thinking now, the one bit of speculation I can have, we talked about this in the pilot review, is we didn't really know how they got into Westworld, even if it was a physical place, or if it was something like The Matrix where, hey, just plug that Exxon Mobil gas thing into the back of my head and I'll enter. This, it looks like it is especially when at the end Anthony Hopkins' character Robert Ford enters it, it's a physical, it's basically like they're playing on top of like Epcot, basically. Or like their corporate offices are on top of like Epcot where these people can go and enter. So it's a physical, tangible world that exists in basically like a gigantic bunker, I think.
Right, which opens up a whole lot of questions. It's like, are there boundaries? How were they able to remove all the other natural wildlife from this place? Like, even something as simple as like a mosquito. Like, or
is everything there man-made?
A fly in the case of this show.
Is everything there man-made, or did they just walk through with flamethrowers in like a natural environment and just fuck everything up and be like, all right, we're good now, wheel in the robots, I think we got it all.
Yeah, and as you know, cockroaches would have still not died, so that wouldn't have worked. So yeah, I think eight more episodes. It's a 10-episode season. It's a dense show, so and it's very expensive, so they can't really go 15 or 16. But I mean, I think they could spend like an hour of this show just talking about the like minutia of how the place was created, and we may still get some of that, or they may just sprinkle it through each episode as we go forward.
Right. The other interesting thing that this episode did, and I was expecting this because of how talented the cast was, and just they wouldn't all sign on for bit roles, but in the first episode, we're really focused mainly on, obviously, Robert Ford, who was played by Anthony Hopkins, who's kind of the creator of Westworld, Jeffrey Wright, who I sort of interpret, and I think we both agree, like kind of his protege, who he brought on and is now very high up in the company, and then, of course, Evan Rachel Wood's character, Dolores Abernathy, and James Marsden's Teddy Flood. They're both robots that sort of have like however romantic a relationship two robots can have. It's probably about as real as like a middle school relationship. So if you're in 6th grade and listening to this, sorry, but it's not going to last. You're not going to end up together.
Well, you shouldn't be, because we speak horrible, vile things that you shouldn't know. We're just kidding. You can listen.
Yeah, it's whatever. Kids nowadays.
Your dad probably put you onto it.
Yeah, he probably doesn't even care about you.
Right.
And then also, so in this episode, we sort of see Thandie Newton's character, Maeve Millay, who's the what's the term they prefer? Chief whore? How does she prefer to be dubbed as the leader of the whorehouse?
I believe it's the madam, right? She's the madam of the brothel. I think that's the preferred term.
Because the last thing we want to do on this podcast is disrespect robot whores, which is a big segment of our listening audience.
Yes. Chief whore is interesting. Maybe we should switch to that for the rest of the podcast.
Chief whore sounds like she has a lot. Like she may even dabble in some of the bookkeeping of the whores. So her character has a really interesting dynamic where basically we see kind of that these robots who they've used in a lot of different story arcs throughout their time in Westworld. Like at one point, Evan Rachel Wood, her dad essentially gets replaced at the end of the first episode, and he used to be the bartender. So what did you think about her story arc? What was going on here with essentially like a robot having dreams or PTSD and flashbacks to like horrible things happening?
Well, going back to the first episode, obviously we got just a little bit of her. I think we can all agree that Thandie Newton is like a national treasure.
Agreed.
And she should probably will have at least one other episode that's going to be mainly focused on her, because we've now seen two female robots that are both starting to get what they refer to as dreams, and they talk later about how they kind of program them to think that they can dream,
right? Just
so that they seem more real. And at one point, they even mention, Jeffrey Wright's character mentions how they talk amongst each other even when their hosts aren't there,
like practicing is what he calls it.
Yeah, so that they can seem more real. But then, going off that, it's like, well, do they know that they're just practicing on it, or are they all programmed to think that everything that's happening is real, so they're practicing without even really realizing that they're practicing,
right? Which
in turn makes them more human.
That's the paradox.
Just communicating.
That's the paradox. Like, a dog doesn't know it's a dog, like Jalen Smith doesn't know that he's a pretentious douchebag,
Jaden Smith, please, let's...
Sagana Diop doesn't know that... Well, he probably knows he's the worst free throw shooter of all time. But the point is, like, how sentient are they? I think they're programmed to think that... If this even makes sense, I can't even fathom what I'm about to say because it's so high level. So unless you're drinking wine with your pinky out, you may not even understand the line that's about to come out of my mouth.
Which I am. So
but the robots think that they're sentient and that they have free will, but they actually don't. Does that make sense? The way I interpret it, like they think that the thoughts they come up with are like their own, but that's because they're taught to think that. I don't know. That's probably the best way I can describe what I think is happening.
Right. Until their programming gets all screwed up, and then they remember shit that's happened to them, and then it goes to a level that's out of the control of their maker. Right.
Correct.
So then it makes them act like. She had, who whispered the line to her about it was the Shakespeare line, which, by the way, this is now 2 episodes in a row.
I know, and it's basically like
these violent delights have violent endings. I think it's from Romeo and Juliet. I looked it up because I was curious.
We need to know that. That is obviously going to play a huge, because Dolores' dad, who originally whispered the line to her, how did he get that line put in? I think there's a mole in the corporation that is somehow setting up this chain of events. It's basically like a virus that is essentially spreading between the hosts.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, it was the robots. Yeah.
Yeah.
that they were a robot the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Obviously.
Which actually, like, we joke with other movies about that, but, like...
It's like my running joke.
In this show, it might apply.
Yeah. So, I guess here's the question that I have, and this may be pretty self-explanatory, but the flashback she's having, that is from another narrative in Westworld that she previously played, correct?
Right. Yes, and we have no idea, like, how long ago that was in, like, real time. Because in that flashback that she has, or whatever you want to call it, she sees the Men in Black, which is Ed Harris's character. As
Do we still not have an actual name for him? Is that what he's still...
No, literally he is the Man in Black.
Okay.
And he shows up in this episode, again, just doing some crazy shit. You could tell their budget was a little less for the second episode, because in the massacre scene, when he shows up and the guy is getting, like, hung...
Exactly.
Artistically, it's like, oh, I see what they're doing. Like, they're not showing him kill all these guys, but really, it's like, we have a budget. It's a TV show.
Yeah.
We can't just be having amazing gunfight sequences that cost, $2 million to put together every episode. So,
but it was still a cool visual, because they basically just... You felt the carnage just by the reaction on this dude's face every time someone gets blown away 2 feet in front of him.
Right, and Ed Harris is basically like, he's like playing the game with a cheat code.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like he's some amazing gunslinger. Like, he's just out there just like, well, I'm just going to kill everybody. They can't do anything to me. And I don't know if you caught the part where he actually, one guy kind of approaches him and they're about to, like, engage in, like, hand-to-hand combat. And it was almost like the robot just kind of gets close to him and just kind of, like, shoves him slightly.
Is that the bartender guy?
Yeah. Like,
came at him? Yeah, he punked that dude bad.
Yeah, and it's just like, so we get that they can't be shot. Like, the host can't be shot.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, not the host, the visitors. But can a robot just walk up and, like, choke somebody out?
That's a great question.
Their programming, like, frees them from doing that.
Yeah, what would prevent a robot from choking someone out with its robot hands?
Or even just, like, punching them in the face. Just, like, something that doesn't require... We get that weapons don't work. Like, we figured that out. It's been established. They, again, haven't really explained how or why that is, but I'm sure they will.
It doesn't make sense to me, but whatever.
Yeah. Again, I like that they're kind of giving us crumbs as they're going through each episode. You can't just, like...
Right.
It kind of keeps the... Again, it's very lost in that way, where you see stuff happening and you get more questions, and hopefully they do a better job of answering the questions than Lost ever did, which they probably will, but...
So... Right now, we sort of have 3 narratives running concurrently that are obviously very interwoven, but in my opinion, I would say there's the Man in Black storyline, which is Ed Harris, the savvy vet of Westworld. He says in this episode, which was kind of cool, that he's been coming here for 30 years.
Right.
So that sort of gives us some nice perspective on, like, how long... Because they said Dolores is she the first host? Or
she was the first one that they, like, designed and put in the world, yeah.
So she's been going back and forth between different storylines for 30-plus years. I mean, that's pretty impressive. So there's his storyline. Then there's the one with the host kind of getting this, I guess, a glitch or some error in their programming where they're having memories and they're just starting to misbehave. And
so they did it with Dolores in episode 1. They did it with, is it Maeve? Is that...
That's how I'm going to read it. If anyone out there knows how to pronounce it.
The Chief Whore.
Yeah, Chief Whore Officer. The CHO.
Yes.
So she's obviously the one who experienced this episode. I'm guessing I would actually kind of like for next episode someone else to start getting it as well.
Yeah, like that would be a cool little... Because, again, it's a TV show, so they have to you can be as super not traditional, but eventually you have to, like, fall into, like, traditional TV tropes. Otherwise, you don't have a TV show.
Right.
Which leads me to Jeffrey Wright's character and...
our third storyline, yeah.
Yeah, Teresa, who we find out that while they're, like, butting heads in their work relationship, they're actually banging it out in the living quarters.
Yeah.
Which, again, it's a classic, like, TV show, like, interesting dynamic trope. Like, oh, these people, like, they have different opinions, but then they have this relationship that is definitely going to be causing some issues in the future.
Yeah, and that's the third storyline is basically what is happening with the corporation that runs Westworld. Have we actually got their name yet? What the name of the company is?
No, but I mean, do you want to guess?
Ford Industries.
I was gonna go with Chief Horror Inc.
I like yours better. The official pod endorsement will be behind Chief Horror Inc. But yeah, so there's that storyline, and they kind of hint in episode 1 at some sort of hostile takeover of Robert Ford's company, and then in this one, they reference how obviously the powers that be on the executive board want a new narrative or a new storyline to really excite guests, and Lee Sizemore, played by Simon Quarterman, who's your just token British douchebag, comes up with a new storyline. He's going to introduce some sort of like carnage-driven Native American versus white man narrative that the guests can play, and obviously Robert Ford, played by Anthony Hopkins, who is still, I believe, like the acting head of the company, nixes it and walks in at the end. And I want to speculate in just a little bit on our theories on what he meant by this, but he says that he has a new idea for a story for the guests at Westworld. And I can't remember the exact line that he uses, but he implies that it's something that we haven't seen before.
Right. That was a great scene. First of all, like the Sizemore, he's dying. Like, he will die in this season.
Absolutely.
That guy is out of his mind. They're purposely making him seem just like a huge asshole. Like, he is going to get like violently murdered by a robot. That's a fact.
A robot is going to smash his face. He's going to die from like facial fractures, which is not.
That is just a fact. It's going to happen. So let's just go ahead and accept that.
If there's a prop bet in Vegas on that, take it right now. Yes,
actually, they took it off the board because they were like, "This is
damn, I knew they were going to do that." There was too much action on it today. It was hot.
It was hot. And yeah, it was just hilarious how his entire, he's basically just making this like cheesy like cowboys and Indians story, and Robert Ford's just like, no, like our guests.
He Matumbo'd that real quick.
Yeah, they don't come here for this. Like, at least not the ones like, yeah, maybe the first time visitors are gonna come and they're gonna get some cheap thrills. And then, in fact, I even think he uses the word cheap thrills. They're gonna come for that. They're gonna be like, but are they gonna come back for that, or are they gonna come back for this more like existential experience that like they get to learn more about who they are, and then it becomes like an addiction because they are a business. They do need people to come back.
Absolutely, our costs go up, your costs go up. That's just life.
Absolutely. That's just how it works.
English, before we get into the last... Well, actually, this is the last segment. I want to do... And this is going to be a great segment doing the reviews for this show. And if you guys are listening to us on YouTube or on iTunes, please tweet at us at Bro4Squad or go to our Facebook page, Bro4Squad, 3 words. We'd love to hear your theories on what's going on in the show, because that's what this is all about, is just fan discussion, getting it out there. So there are 2 things that I want to get your theory on, and then, because I know you also had another theory you want to drop a bombshell on here.
Well, it's not my theory, but I read it somewhere, and I was like, oh my God.
So the first one is, what do you think is going on with the corporation? What is their role in sort of the, I don't want to call it mischief or foul play that's going on with the host, but like something is awry. People starting to realize it. And then before you drop the bombshell of a theory, or if this is in fact what it entails, what is Robert Ford's new idea for a story for the guests at Westworld?
Gotcha. Okay, so going to your first point about what's going on with the corporation, I think we are definitely being led to believe that maybe some of the people we think are actually human that are in charge of this program actually may not be. And
give me some guesses on which characters.
I'm going to put a question mark over Jeffrey Wright's character.
Wow.
To be perfectly honest
that
with you.
Would be a bombshell.
I really, and this isn't a slight on him. He kind of has this like robotic acting style anyways. Mm-hmm. Like, which, again, it's not a slight. Like, I actually think it really works for like his delivery and how he goes about his business. But, the scene where he was down in like the lower levels and he's asking Dolores to like erase. Was he talking to Dolores or with Maeve? I can't remember exactly. He's asking her to like erase the record of a conversation. He just kind of glitched almost. It was like...
Yeah, Maeve had like 2 or 3 times that she was worked on in this episode, so it's kind of hard to remember because obviously those 2 scientists fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, and we don't like brag about our preparation here. We just kind of get on and shoot the shit. So
we're bros just like you, okay?
Right, yeah. Give us a break, you know?
Jesus, Dad.
But I just thought that scene was interesting. Like, I just thought it was almost like he was like glitching. And I wonder if that's the case, then maybe, again, the powers that be, who we might not even, like, know what their true kind of goals are for the... maybe they're not doing as well as they
or
should
maybe
be.
Robert Ford knows he is a host, you know? Maybe he...
Right, and it could just be... it really could just be as simple as this place is very expensive to run and operate.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's a form of entertainment, and maybe we're just not where we need to be, and we need to change it up. Maybe there's something that, and maybe that's kind of how their motivation started. Maybe there's this like draconian thing going on in the background that's causing all this uprest that's actually going to give them, you know, maybe they'll be in the news. Maybe it's going to be a way for them to like...
As the Oakland Raiders would say, and Matt Geiger at home knows this is true, no publicity is bad publicity.
Exactly.
Even if you murdered everyone.
I do wonder if it's going to be something like that, but it'll be interesting for sure, because I think that's the plot line that's the least exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's the one that's going to have the highest payoff.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That one right now is the least interesting, just because, and it's not really a slight on that plot line, because I think just everything else is more interesting. But that's the one that I think at the end is going to be the thing that really is kind of the fulcrum and the first domino that sets all this shit off.
Exactly, yeah, and it's going to make it all kind of flow together. You're going to be able to rewatch the show having known that, like what it ended up being, and be like, oh,
yeah,
wow.
This show will have that rewatchability after you know the way shit goes down. You can go back and pick up. I'm sure they've been dropping crumbs the whole time, and we just, because we don't know where it goes.
Right, we're just stupid idiots. We're not smart enough.
We're so dumb. We're still primates, really, intellectually. Right. I want to hear your theory, if you have one, on what Robert Ford's story is. And there was sort of a few... First off, real quick, this is kind of a quick tangent. That little boy that he befriends in the desert and walks around with, I have a theory that is him creating a robot of himself as a child.
I saw that somewhere else as well, and I think it's probably true. And I don't even think they really tried to hide it. It was almost like on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
It's that way he can kind of keep himself grounded, and when he goes back to the world to visit, he can kind of have a conversation with himself, but himself at like a very naive. So it's almost like he's putting himself in like, he's talking to most of the people that are going to be coming there for the first time are going to be naive, just like our Jimmy Simpson, you know, William in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
They're not really going to know what's going on, so maybe it's a way for him to like stay fresh and continue to come up with interesting things for the park. Maybe.
Him as a child has like a Joe Dirt origin story where his parents abandoned him in the desert, basically.
Yep. That's, oh my god, this is all connected now.
That's what
Joe Dirt is the prequel.
This is basically just Joe Dirt, the same way that The Lion King is Hamlet. There's really too many illusions. It's almost distracting at this point.
For sure.
So do you have a theory on what Robert, or even just like a guess, or just what Robert Ford's story could be?
Every time that Anthony Hopkins starts talking, I think my brain just stops working, because I'm just like so in awe of just Anthony Hopkins. First of all, being on a TV show, and then just in general, because it's Anthony Hopkins, that I kind of just letting that one flow. Like, I just want to see where that's going to take me. But clearly, he thinks Sizemore is a waste, and he's probably just like, why are we even hiring this guy? And he's just going to
ask a robot to kill him, is what's going to happen.
He has a way larger... Yeah, he's going to have that robot snake bite him in the neck.
The dick.
Just for fun.
Or the neck,
dick. Yeah, snakes on a plane. Right. So I really don't. I can't say I've thought about it, because I look at Anthony Hopkins, and I'm like, I'm just gonna ride this one out and just see what happens. I'm gonna be really bummed. This is something I have thought about, being that it is Anthony Hopkins, and who knows what kind of he probably still thinks that TV is like the medium, or like loser actors go,
right?
Because he's so old.
It's not a good place to go to act. That was my Anthony
like,
Hopkins.
Who knows what his agent like what he had? It's like, no, listen, like, have you heard of this little show called The Sopranos? It changed everything. You know, now people do this now. And then he's probably like, oh, how much will they pay me? You know, I can leave it to my grandkids.
All the money.
And I wonder if he's just gonna be in a just one season arc, which would bum me out. But I almost like I could see him being like this.
He's a martyr, I think.
Lamp where he's like the ray of light of the season and what he's trying to achieve, but at the end of the day, like, he could never like survive that way in this brave new world.
I'm going to predict, and I don't have any specifics that I can get into yet to even speculate on, but he dies in a way that is really kind of like the end of whatever factions are drawn or are created between the host and the company and the guests coming in. Him dying is kind of like will be like the end of whatever war takes place or whatever ends up happening. It'll basically be like the symbolic end. I have a theory.
Betrayed somehow.
Yeah, it seems to me like, and this is not even a theory. This is pretty much said. He's going to do some sort of introduction of religion into Westworld. With that church, and I have a theory that there'll either be a narrative where one of the users or the guests come in can essentially be like a deity that the people in Westworld worship, or maybe he'll even go so far as to make it like sort of a puritanical settlement where when you go there, it's like intense, can be like violent and like controlling type religion for where people can even go if like they are either hoping to be saved or maybe like even want people to, in some instances, turn them off on religion. The tough thing is this takes place in the future, so we don't really, slightly in the future it feels like, so we don't really know what the state of religion is or like what the, I'm guessing this takes place in the United States, but we don't know like their stance on it at this point.
Yeah, the United States of the world, because it's just all one country at that point.
Yeah.
Pangea that's reunited. Really interesting. That's really, it's almost like the experience of you're going to join this cult,
right?
But you won't actually have to drink the punch that kills you. But you can still learn all the things that get you to that point to learn more about you. But we're not going to kill you. Now, so if you leave this place and what you've learned makes you want to kill yourself,
that's on you.
You signed the waiver.
You did. That's your signature.
That's on you. Yeah, our lawyers talk to your lawyers, and we're all good there. But that's a really interesting. I'm gonna keep my eye on that moving forward because I hadn't thought of it that way. That's really interesting.
It could be a good place for if you're like a parent and you have a kid who's like, "Hey, mom, I'm like thinking of joining a cult." You're like, "All right, why don't you fucking go to Westworld, join the cult there, and when you get back, let's see if you still want to do it." And then it's fine with me. Join the suicide cult group at school that meets Tuesday, Thursdays.
Also, it's like $500,000 for a week, so
But you really can't put a price tag on scaring your kids straight. I don't think.
All right, you ready for my theory? And it's not my theory. Again, it's all over the internet. So
I cleared the space on the floor in my room because I heard you're about to drop some knowledge.
For sure. All right, so the character of William, played by Jimmy Simpson, is actually the Men in Black. And
wait, what?
The timelines take place in completely different
realms.
realms.
My God!
Right? So, and again,
Holy
it's Nolan.
Shit.
It's Nolan, so of course they would fuck around with time, and like that's just how a lot of his plot, and it fits perfectly in like deception, leading you one way. So I thought when I saw that, I was like, I wonder if I start seeing crumbs for that in the third episode, I'm gonna be on that theory hard.
For everyone listening at home, I'm not this good of an actor. English had never told me that theory up until now, and I'm dead. I'm a deceased individual somehow hosting this podcast.
And he's got like X's on his eyes right now.
That hasn't even happened, and I'm fucking shocked by it.
So even if it's not true, just the fact that the show allows for that kind of theorizing, and I love that. And if that ends up being true, I won't be upset.
Not at all.
Because it's awesome, and I think odds are it's probably not. true, but if it is, that would be very cool. And you could see how this guy who comes in kind of having no idea. And again, the reason why it can be true is because, of course, the robots don't age. They're designed a certain way, and they may get different costumes and different storylines, but they're going to look the same until they decommission them.
And they can like move them from one storyline to another one, back to that storyline. So Maeve could be Chief Whore in this day, go be woman who sees her family get scalped, like a little less fun, and then come back and be Chief Whore again.
Exactly. So I thought that was really cool, and it could almost even be like something where they show you the progression of the William character through the world as he kind of figures it out more and more and more, and he comes in as this like really innocent guy and becomes this like obsessed.
He almost seems like addicted to it in a certain way.
Exactly. And I don't know if you caught it. I'm sure you did when they're like watching the actual people who are running Westworld. They have video, like they're watching all of this as it's happening. And when Ed Harris's character is like killing everybody, one of the like probably one of the like rookie analysts that just started. He's like qualified for the job, but maybe he shouldn't have been in like the room, to begin with.
He got the job because he was like, I win all my fantasy leagues. Like, oh my God, that's so impressive. We want to hear more about that. Please come work here.
He's like, yeah, I mean, we all love hearing about other people's fantasy teams.
Yeah, by the way, if you're listening to this, side note, and you talk about your fantasy team to people that aren't in the league, don't.
Yeah, just don't. Just don't. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to nod while thinking about completely different things.
Literally anything else.
Yeah, and like you might say that like that. What do you think about this trade? And it might be a horrible trade, and I might be able to actually help you out. But I'm just gonna say, yeah, that's great. Do it. Like that's just gonna be my answer. So, yeah. But that was an interesting tangent. But no, going back to Ed Harris's character. So like he's like killing all these people, and that guy just says something to the the other Hemsworth, which is what he shall be known by from this point forth.
Yeah.
He says like, oh, this guy's like gone on like 3 murdering rampages the last 2 weeks. Should we like maybe tell him not to do that? And Luke Hemsworth's character is like, no, the guy gets everything he wants.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty cool because again, he's been there forever. Like he's given this place millions and millions of dollars, so they're not about to like stop him from just doing whatever he wants, even though it means they have to do all this extra work now of cleaning the robots up and getting them ready again to be in the world. Like they're perfectly fine with that because clearly he's spending more to be part of the world than what it's costing them to fix it.
He gets to get a little more handsy with the robots because at the end of the day, he's paying for it essentially. Well, that theory, I think, is probably the best way to end our review on episode 2 of Westworld, mainly because I don't have any brain matter left after hearing that. It's all turned to mush. Thank you guys for listening to this. Please interact with us. Let us know what you think about the review. Let us know what you think about the show. We're hoping to just do one every episode of this show because I think there's going to be enough to talk about each time. It's a Jonathan Nolan, J.J. Abrams show. I don't think we'll have a lack of storyline to discuss, personally. Be sure to keep up with us, bro4squad.com. Follow us on Twitter, @bro4squad, Facebook, guess what, bro4squad. Subscribe to us on iTunes. Check out our YouTube channel. We have all our reviews, our movie commentaries, our episodes. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. We look forward to talking to you next time. We will see you then.
Peace.